Alright, this is a video on Fenrisian Wolves for my painting competition that I decided to join. I'm not going to bore you with the details on this, as you probably have put the models together yourself or have seen someone else do it. The straightforward, simple kits with only really requiring 4 parts to each model. 2 parts for the head and 2 parts for the body. And then you just slap them down on the base. Very easy models to put together. I decided to go with Fenrisian Wolves after I did a little poll both on Twitter and my Facebook, and both my friends and some of the community said I should try Fenrisian Wolves. I have never seen anyone enter them in a painting competition. I've decided what kind of fur I'm going to be using, and I'll go over that when I get to the painting group. But for now, while the video is just playing, I think I will just talk a little about my history in the game for those who will listen. I started playing back in 5th edition in 2009. Now, granted, a little bit later than most people probably, but 2009 still. I really got my first army, though, not until 2010, before I got married. But my first choice of army wasn't the first army I started playing. When I was introduced to the game by several people, I tried out different armies, ranging from Imperial Guard all the way through demons. The Imperial Guard I liked because it represented something that I was part of at the time, which was the United States Army. And I thought, hey, why not? I'm an army person, so I would play the army. I did not pick it up or even try it because the people I was with said this was a very complicated army to play. And they said it's not new player friendly. That said, the second choice of army I was wanting to try out and play was Eldar, or Space Elves for people who don't know the game that well. Again, the people I was with told me that this is also not a friendly army for new players. So I went, and they suggested at the time to play Space Marines. At the time, I did not want to. I did not want to play straight up Space Marines. I wanted to try and challenge myself. So I went with a third option, which was Tower Empire, which reminded me of Mobile Suit Gundam because they have a lot of mecha suits. And at this time, no one really could stop me because I wasn't with them. I was actually back home on leave and picked up a box myself from there. Back at home, starter kit plus a few flavor rolls and whatnot. Well, after I got back, I put my models together and everything else. People were shocked about it, and I learned how badly the Tal Empire actually performed in melee. This is very distraught for me, as I wanted a more well-balanced army, one that can shoot and one that can do well in melee. Though I still like the suit aspect of the Tal Empire, so I kept a hold of my Tal for a very, very long time until I finally decided to give them away, sell them / give them away to a friend years later. But after I got few games of Tau in, I had actually about 3,000 points worth of Tau before I decided to build a second army, and this time I went with Space Marines. Now, at first I went with just the Ultramarines, as it's a kind of one, and I was told it was the easiest to do. I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to people's advice on this and do what they suggest. So I started painting up Space Marines, trying out the game here and there. This is before I and looked into the lore, dove into the history of each of the factions, and really started to take more of a foothold into the actual game. I was just playing a game. Just a game. I had not really deciding if it was going to be a full-fledged hobby at the time yet, but just a game. Well, after reviewing the Space Marine Codex and learning about different factions, I actually enjoyed some of the lore in the factions. One being the salamanders really struck my attention. While reading upon more of the salamanders, I was drawn to two other factions back in the Legion time, the Horus Heresy time, that were similarly similar to the salamanders, yet completely different in the same way. The way they're similar is they were developed isolated with the salamanders on the side from all other the legions. Those two legions mean the Alpha Legion and Space Wolves. The Alpha Legion is a Chaos Space Marine force, which there's a bunch of jokes about them that they're still loyal or they're traitors. It doesn't really matter. But I found that kind of interesting. Now, I'll never truly play Chaos in the sense that the game is good in a way that the game represents good and evil. I just don't like the demon side. It's not something that I'm interested in. So I'll stick with normal, the Emperor side, kind of, and play that game. But the Space Wolves caught my attention because they represent a kind of group that I also like in our own history. But it's the second most liked group I like. First being Japanese history, their traditions, their style in the past is very drawing me towards them. Yes, I like anime and a few other stuff, but Japanese traditions, Japanese aesthetics are really nice to me. Too bad, but there's no real Space Marine force that is a Japanese style. The army that represents the closest to a Japanese style would be the Eldar, and I do not actually like the lore behind the Eldar that much. So the second group that I chose, the reason why I chose my second group to go with, which is the Space Wolves, is because they represent Norse. I like Norse mythology more than anything else. Specifically, their mythology. I haven't read up upon a lot of the culture or anything else, but I have a general idea about reading by general history of that region at that time. So I do know what they kind of were like, but not truly, really, really were like. And the Space Wolves looked like Vikings in space, and I wanted to go with that. Yes, they have more and more wolf aspects to them than they should, but that being said, they are better suited for whatever kind of perception you want to give them than anything else. Wolf this, wolf that, okay, they're werewolves, big deal. But they're also still Vikings. Very much so Vikings. You don't have to stress the wolf aspect as much as people want to believe. The Viking aspect of the Space Wolves is prominently there, and a lot of people just overlook it because the wolf aspect is more strongly shown off than anything else. Though wolf pelt is very good at keeping you warm in coldness, so makes actually sense. And in the lore, even though there are no wolves on Fenris, there are no wolves on Fenris, but they have a lot of pelts of wolves. For those who know the joke, it's a sad running joke. A quick explanation is, before the humans in the Warhammer universe arrived on Fenris, there was no wolves. After the humans got there, wolves came up. Through genetic mutations and other stuff, it's a long, complicated kind of lore that a lot of people just shrug off and roll their eyes at. And it's like, whatever. If people don't want to know it, they don't want to know it. To me, it's nice, though. Just the generalized aspect. So I picked my Space Wolves after I started painting the Ultramarines up. After I got married, my wife took a small interest at start about my hobby, and I asked her what kind of army she would want. And she, at first, picked the Blood Angels of a nice, strong red tone. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I started picking up her Blood Angels and painting them up for her. This was after I got rid of the Ultramarines, though, because no one was going to play them. Since I switched to the Space Wolves, I did not want to paint all those over again, and the Space Wolves have their own kit specifically made for them. So I was in the process of trying to build them up. I had about a 3,000 point army before I had to sell them the first time. And it wasn't just the Space Wolves. I sold my Blood Angels, not my Tau, but my Blood Angels, my Knights, and a few other things I had at that time. The reason being is I got out of the military and we ran into a small little financial crisis that lasted only really 2 months. In reality, it wasn't a crisis. We could have survived. But we needed to cut down some stuff, and my wife convinced me to sell some of the stuff. I was like, okay. But she promised that, and I made her give the okay, that once our finance looked fine, I was going to be allowed to get back into the game. And I did. Now, I didn't sell every single of my specials off, but I sold about 90% of them. So I had to rebuild from scratch my second army. I got the second army again up to about 3,000 points. At this time, I still, as I said, I had my Tal still, and I added a few extra units to there. I actually had about 4,000 points in total, at which time I decided just to sell my Tal off at that time. I wasn't actually involved in playing with them anymore. I just wanted to sell them off. My wife was surprised at this, but I was like, I'm going to cut down on my armies. I do not want all of these armies. So I sold off my Tau. I sold off basically everything except for the Space Wolves. Well, I ran into a second financial crisis where I was unable to have a job for about a year and a half-ish, where at the time I was going to school, but it wasn't bringing enough. We moved back into her parents' place, so I had to sell off a lot of stuff. But my wife, again, allowed me to rebuild once we had a stable life. Well, stable life came. I started rebuilding for the third time, and I've been rebuilding since then at a very, very, very slow pace. I have together 2 Greyhound packs that I've just had them forever on me, and there was not much I could do about it. I actually have a big pile of boxes I need to get together and painted, and if I did, I probably would have about half a great company of the firstborn Marines put together. I would actually have full packs of Fenrisian Wolves and 1 full pack of Wolfen also. Now, I've played a lot heavily in 5th, 7th edition, the start of 8th, right before the whole COVID situation hit. And I didn't get a game in late 8th edition to 9th edition. I got only 1 game of 9th edition in because of COVID. And in 10th edition coming up, well, it just released on this weekend that I'm recording this. And I'm hopeful I can get a few of the games in this edition, a lot more than I was in the 9th edition. I said recording this, but the actual video I've had fully recorded for the last 3 weeks, and just needed time to sit down and go over with on the voice. And sorry about the video being a little fast looking / choppy. Still learning how to record stuff and this was done with using a phone, not really a proper video recorder. So you'll see a little bit chippy chop, cut in, cut outs that don't make sense. That's just how it ended up. I was using an iPhone, my work phone, to record this, and I'm seeing some of the videos didn't transfer over completely okay, but that's fine. I cannot really fully fix it at this point, and it's just everything else. I got all 15 Wolves fully done, and I'm planning to actually submit all 15. Now, the only trouble I actually going to foresee having with this is the Wolves actually were reduced down to 10. Now I hope that gets updated to back to 15 in 10th edition, but that's probably because GW is planning to phase them out in the end, which I don't mind. updating my army will be a nice thing, but I do want to finish a full Great Company of the very firstborn, and that's going to take a little bit of time. But I'm willing to put in the effort and a little bit of time with it because it is a hobby that I do enjoy. So I don't foresee any real reason, except for a little bit of finances here and there, of why will be troublesome. But if my wife being my wife, I don't foresee much trouble in that. She's very good at finance work, so there shouldn't be too many problems with this. That's basically a very quick, rough history of me playing this game. I adore my Space Wolves, but there's some aspects of it that just, for some reason, just gets me a little peeved. There's some players mostly. I like having fun when I play games, including tabletop. I like to just have fun with it. But some players, they don't. They don't want to have fun for some reason, and I just cannot seem to see why. They want to try to make everything worse for other people. There's a current person in our group who, when I saw him play in 9th edition, I stopped and said hi to everybody and saw him versus a demon player. The demon player was actually a pretty decent person, and his army was pretty good. It wasn't overly powered, it was just a collection of what he had. But the guy he was against was playing Custodes. That's just a standard expensive army to begin with. But on top of that, he had basically 6 very hard to deal with units. And that was most of his army. Other than that, he had 1 squad of infantry and 2 characters on the table. And that's it. It is not much. And unless you bring a very tailored list to deal with something like that, you're not going to deal with it that easily. And his players like that, even though he had a cool personality and stuff, that to me seems to hurt the game more than anything else. It's like, even if you get some people who play for fun, play off and on, they're not going to want to be playing with people like that. I can bring broken lists, everybody can, but people want to have fun. And I don't think this guy's going to change his mind accordingly. It's just going to be very, very hard to play against him, but I will welcome the challenge anyways. We Wolves do not back down from challenges. We always try to overcome them. So as a Wolf player, I have to make sure that I don't back down from the challenge, and I take it head on. Though I may be slightly better equipped to deal with his kind of list than the person who brought the demons was, because I have more versatility in my shooting and melee than the guy who only had basically nothing but melee. So here's hoping that if and when I do face him, it doesn't just turn to a one-side slaughterfest like it was on the others when the Demons player played. Yes, he got 1 of the tanks down, but that was just 1. There was still 2 tanks and 3 dreadnoughts still on the table to be dealt with, besides the characters and the infantry. But that's all I have to really say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you when I get this stuff started to paint. That will be the next video. Hopefully it doesn't take me 3 weeks to get that video processed and put up. Hopefully I'm only getting the wolves done within a week. Then I plan to start on the dreadnought after that and have the dreadnought fully done before the end of July, so I can start on Ragnar, Blackmane, and take 2-3 weeks to get him fully done, giving me hopefully about a week to spare to let my models fully dry, and well, most of them will be fully dry, but just to let them fully dry and let me see if there's anything I need to fix in that last week. But hopefully I do not. Thank you.